students, in this video we are going to learn about the factors that were responsible for the rise of nation states. Now, at present, when we talk of the terms like nation or nationalities, to us these are very easy concepts. Like, for instance, if you look at these two images, automatically you know, okay, these two people or these leaders are from India. These leaders are from Pakistan. And here we have Trump and Obama. So it is, the moment we look at them, okay, these are from USA. So we as Indians, we know that these people, they don't belong to our country, or these people, they don't belong to our country. So these folks are not ours. So definitely we might all have very friendly relations. Okay. But yet we come from different nations, and this concept is now very clear to us. However, what you need to understand is these ideas of nation and nationalities, they were not very clear earlier. Okay? So in fact, if we go to the period, let's go to the era prior to almost 1500. So during this time, we did not have anything which was known as concrete nations. Or we can say, since we are talking about nation states, we can say that there was nothing as such which we can term as nation states. So we have to now understand from where did these two concepts emerge. Okay, so what we will do is, let us first of all jot down what are the various factors that could have led to the emergence of nation states. Now, first of all, the major factor that led to the rise of nation states was the decline of feudalism. And the second factor about which we will talk about is the decline in the power of the church. Okay? Now, before that, it is very important to once again, first of all, focus on what is actually a nation state. Yes, so when we are talking about the concept of nation state, it has basically three important parts. First of all, it should have a defined territory. Secondly, it should have a sovereign government. And it should have, or it should be made up of people who share a common culture, history, and language. Okay. So now, whenever we actually, even at present, we talk about a country, these are the three things that automatically comes to us. Okay. But however, the evolution of nation state was not an easy process. So we will move one at a time and we will try to understand the factors that have led to the emergence. Now the first, as we have already talked about, is the decline in feudalism. Right? So let us first understand this concept. Now, if you look at the 15th century Europe, okay, now in Europe during that time, feudalism was in practice. So when we talk about feudalism, what do we mean by feudalism? Feudalism is a political and economic system that is based on land ownership. Okay? So it is just not political, it is also an economic system, and what is primary here is land ownership. Okay. Now, here, under this system, actually, most common people, so these white people are the common people. So, most common people, they lived on the lands which was being owned by the rich noble class. So, the blue man is the nobleman. So, the nobleman owns this patch of land and on which these common people or folk, they are living. So this land this land that this nobleman owned was also known as a fief. Okay, and if you look, this fief was almost like a kingdom on its own. Okay, so this land had its own laws. This land had its own practices. Okay, now for these common people, these people were really very well connected with the nobleman. So these common people owed their allegiance to the nobleman. The common people, you can say, they hardly had any contact with the king or the crown. To them, the nobleman was everything. Okay. However, this equation started changing during the 15th century. Alright. So, how did it change? Let's move on and see. Now, during the 15th century, there were several crusades. Now, what are crusades? Now, crusades are basically wars that were fought between, on one hand, you had the Christians and you had the Muslims. Or you can say the Christian West and the Muslims East. Okay, so they were actually fighting over the Holy Lands. Okay, so who would take over the Holy Lands? Now, after the Crusades came to an end, all the soldiers, all these Christian soldiers who had gone to the east to fight, they were finally returning home. Now, these soldiers, okay, so these soldiers, when they returned home, they brought with them what you can say is the stories of the East or the stories of the wealth in the East. Alright, so now they thought that in the East there is so much wealth is there. So why don't we build trade routes connecting West with the East? Okay, so automatically what happened after the Crusades? Trade routes emerged and trades began between the West and the East. Now what happens when trades start happening along the trade route? People start settling themselves. Okay, so towns and villages, they started developing in all this region along the trade routes. Okay, now all these people who were living by the trade routes, they were earning good amount of money from the trade. Yes, so for them, they no longer had to depend on the noblemen because now they had enough money. Yes, so what did the common people, we had drawn the common people in white. So let's draw them again. So these common people, they started demanding independence. Okay, they demanded independence from the local lords. Clear? Okay, because now all these common people, they now understood that since they had the money, okay, they could stand on their own. Also, in these towns, several workers who were working in these in these towns, they were poor and they thought that the best way that I can overcome my poverty is if I break away from feudalism, if I can break away from the clutches of the noblemen. Okay. So, these poor people, they said, why will I again bind myself in this link of poverty? Okay. Instead, I can become merchants. I can become craftsmen. If I become merchants, if I become craftsmen, I will become stronger and powerful. And so they started revolting against the feudal lords. So as this feudalism was breaking down, okay, as feudalism was breaking down, it was in this situation that the kings started rising in power. Okay, so the kings thought that this is a brilliant time to topple the feudal lords and me coming back to power. So the king is coming back to power. So how will the king, this is the crown of the king, so how will the king come back to power? He will come back to power if he starts supporting the rising merchant class. Because this merchant class, they are trying to gain power. They are trying to gain authority. So the king thought, if I extend my aid or support to this group, in turn, I can also come into power. Okay? So in this way, one important factor of nation state, that is the rise of a sovereign ruler, came into being. And if you see, the first such sovereign rulers or powerful monarchs who came up, they were rulers such as Louis the 11th of France. Okay, he was the first person in France who tried to unify France. Okay, then we have Henry the 7th of England. Then you have Ivan the 4th in Russia. So it was the initial attempts of developing a nation states. It came up with the weakening of feudalism and empowering of monarchy. I hope so the concept has been clear. In the next video, we will try to understand how the reducing of the power of the church also led to the rise of nation states.